Alrighty guys, listen, I have been sitting on this one for a minute because the timing of this whole thing is so stupid, so layered, so perfectly engineered that I genuinely do not think it is an accident anymore. Let me set the stage for you, because we are not just talking about a DJ Akademiks stream clip this morning. We are talking about Jay-Z, the blueprint architect, the legend they call HOV, the man whose 30-year anniversary tour just touched down for a 3-night Yankee Stadium run. Sitting on what insiders are calling a real project while he schedules a second SoFi Stadium date for the night of October 24th, 2026, which, in case you have been living under a rock, is also the exact night Aubrey Drake Graham, the guy whose entire marketing calendar has been built around his birthday since 2009, turns 40. And yes, the man whose entire digital empire has been built on the back of being the audience surrogate for Drake's world, the man they call Squidward because of the basement stream glow and the magnetic hairstyle, just went on his stream and told 40,000 viewers two things at the same time. He said he has heard that HOV has a new album on the way. And then he said, almost in the same breath, that he will be in Los Angeles for the SoFi show and that if Jay brings out Kendrick Lamar, he will not miss it. The wild part is not what he said. The wild part is that he said it while acting as if he is not the loudest, most consistent anti-HOV mouthpiece on the entire internet. So either everything he has built his brand on for the last 3 years is suddenly on pause, or he has been performing a grift the whole time and the grift is starting to crack. And that is only the surface layer. Underneath that is a 30-year playbook of hip-hop rollout form colliding with a 25-year streaming economy that nobody, and I mean nobody, has fully explained yet. And in the middle of it all is a music executive named Ray Daniels, the dissertator, the man the industry, let's say the quiet part out loud, who just sat down on the TFU podcast and told Charlemagne, in plain English, that Jay-Z would need industry cheats to even drop new music on a younger rapper's era, and that any new HOV album would require structural support to land. And within 12 hours, the Rock Nation camp pushed back on that framing publicly. That alone tells you how high the temperature is right now. So what I want to do today is walk you through the entire timeline. The Yankee 3-night run, the Paris anniversary date, the second SoFi date, Drake's October 24th math, the Akademiks commentary, the Kung Fu Kenny pop-out lore, the Ray Daniels dissertation, and the deeper Rock Nation publishing angle that is going to make you understand once and for all why the most cited argument in all of this, that nobody wants to hear new music from an OG, is the most obvious deflection in the entire current conversation. Stay with me, because by the time we get to the contract structure breakdown, you are going to see that almost every single thing that has been said about HOV, about Drake, about Kendrick, and about ACT has been told to us backward. And once you see the right order, you cannot unsee it. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Okay, so let me lock in the timeline because this is the part most people are getting wrong. The starting point is not the Akademiks stream clip. The starting point is the Jay-Z 30th anniversary tour. Rock Nation announced, and Variety confirmed it, that the 30th anniversary retrospective run would include a 3-night opening at Yankee Stadium, a Paris date for September 10th, 2026, and a Los Angeles date at SoFi Stadium to follow, and you can find that confirmation directly on Variety's music desk if you want to verify it, because they are the outlet that broke the Paris and LA legs in the original announcement. Then a second SoFi date was added, and I want to stress this, deliberately, after the first one had already moved units. Per Rolling Stone's ticket market reporting, the second date was set for October 24th. That is the extra show. That is the one Akademiks told his stream he would attend. And that is the exact night Aubrey turns 40 years old and enters the bracket of rap artists who have spent 2 decades dominating the mid-20s cultural moment and who now have to figure out what their midlife era is even supposed to look like. The deeper question, the one nobody wants to ask out loud, is whether ACT, the man whose entire digital identity is built on goose-stepping for the OVO calendar, actually believes showing up at HOV's SoFi show is good for his Sidewalk News Network business. And the answer is obvious. He does not believe that at all. He believes that it is the most watched hip-hop story of the fall and that the smart move is to be physically present for it, with the camera rolling. So he can claim to have covered the moment even though we both know Chicago Avenue never covered a Jay-Z show before in his life. Now I am not saying he has not earned his ticket. I am not saying he cannot enjoy the show. I am saying that a man who has spent 3 straight years constructing a brand around being the loudest defender of Drake's position has zero business pretending he is suddenly a HOV neutral. So either the brand is fracturing or, and I think this is the more accurate read, the brand has always been a grift. And the only thing that has changed is that the grift is starting to fail because the act Akademiks is performing has stopped producing the only result it was ever built to produce, which was narrative control for a man who has spent the last 2 years throwing subliminals at the wrong guy. Add to that the fact that every artist of consequence in the streaming era rotates through their catalog the same way, and the math on why an OG refresh window is overdue starts to make more and more sense. SoFi itself is a powerful frame. It is not a club. It is not a theater. SoFi is a 70,000-seat stadium. And when you play a 70,000-seat stadium twice in the same week, you are not testing demand. You are confirming it. And that confirmation reads loud for anyone who has been paying attention, especially when Live Nation's own event pages for Jay-Z are openly listing both LA nights in their tour inventory right now, which is the kind of public record that no Drake stan rebuttal can argue with. Let me show you the surface evidence because every single piece of it is doing the same thing. The first piece is the timing of the second SoFi show itself. Rolling Stone and Live Nation listings both confirm that the original SoFi date was announced first, that initial ticket demand pushed it into a sellout bracket, and that the second date was opened up afterward. In other words, the underlying demand signal is real and was not engineered by Roc Nation. The market asked for a second show and HOV, and The Roc responded, and Ticketmaster and Live Nation both still carry both nights in their public tour inventory. That piece of evidence kills, by itself, the single most popular talking point in the Drake stan universe, which is that nobody wants to see Jay-Z live anymore. That is just not true. SoFi Stadium is not a 3,000-seat venue. It is a 70,000-seat building, and it takes a specific level of demand to push a venue that size into a second night. And we are supposed to believe that nobody wants to see it. Okay. The second piece of surface evidence is Akademiks' actual stream clip itself. The footage, which circulated on Real Hot New Hip Hop, was reposted by According to Hip Hop and triggered Instagram reactions from accounts like at hiphop24x7 and at the _shade_room. Contains a specific 2-minute window where Act says on camera that he has heard that HOV has a new album in the works and that he has also heard that HOV wants Drake to engage so the rollout can use that smoke as fuel. And then, bafflingly, in almost the same breath, he says he will be in Los Angeles for the SoFi show if Jay brings out Kendrick. Now I want to be very careful about how I handle this, because I am not going to overread a streamer's hypothetical. But what I am going to say is that when a man whose entire brand is built on anti-HOV energy publicly tells 40,000 viewers that he is flying to Los Angeles for a Jay-Z show, the brand just told you something the brand did not mean to tell you. The Squidward is leaving the basement. And the third piece, and this is the one I really want to dwell on, is a complex feature dating back earlier this year where Akademiks argued that Drake's first 3 albums are valued more than Jay-Z's entire catalog. That argument is the operative frame that Act has been running for months. It is the foundation of his Sidewalk News Network coverage of this whole saga. And then, in the same year, on his own stream, he tells his audience he wants to be at the HOV show. Those two positions cannot both be true. One of them is the real opinion. The other is the brand posture. And the brand posture is what just broke in public. The fourth piece of surface evidence is the Ray Daniels TFU podcast appearance. He went on TFU, sat in front of Charlemagne, and laid out a specific claim that any new Jay-Z album would have to be propped up by industry cheats to land on a younger rapper's era. And he went further. He said HOV has been targeting younger rappers as part of his current public posture. Within 12 hours, sources close to Roc Nation pushed back on that framing publicly, and the 92Q Baltimore write-up captured the response. That sequence, accusation, response, 12-hour window, is exactly how serious labels handle serious leaks. It is not how you handle a nobody's opinion. That is how you handle a leak you are worried about going national. And the fifth piece of surface evidence is the simplest one, and it is the one I want everybody to marinate on for a second. Drake's birthday is October 24th. SoFi date number 2 is October 24th. These two facts are sitting in the same calendar grid, on the same night, in the same city, in the same rollout window, roughly 2 months before Drake is reportedly supposed to release the next phase of his Iceman rollout. Do I think Jay-Z dropped a tour date on Aubrey's birthday as a flex? No, I do not. I think it was added because demand called for it. But I absolutely do think that the OVO camp knows about this overlap. And the question is what they do with it. And for context on that last point, you should know that Iceman, Drake's most recent full-length is publicly documented as a May 15, 2026 release through OVO Sound and Republic Records, and the project has been openly tracked in trade press and on Wikipedia's project entry since it dropped. So when I say Drake's team is operating on a calendar with a known release window and a known birthday window, that is not speculation. That is a publicly trackable schedule. And oh, do I have more? Because what I have just given you is the Layer 1 stuff and almost the entire surface-level commentary tracks operating today, and there are a lot of them, have been working off these exact same 4 to 5 pieces. And yet nobody, almost nobody, has tied them to the deeper Layer 2 evidence. The ACT stans are busy laughing at the idea of him going to the show. The HOV stans are busy dunking on Drake. The Ray Daniels defenders are busy pointing to his channel reputation. And none of them are connecting the dots to what is actually happening inside the Rock Nation building. So let me walk you through the Layer 2 cultural evidence, because this is where the story starts to move from entertainment into something more substantial. The first piece of cultural evidence I want to bring to your attention is the Roots picnic moment. In spring of 2025, HOV popped out at the Roots picnic in Philadelphia, walked on stage, did a long freestyle, and in the middle of that freestyle landed a subliminal shot that the entire culture read as an Aubrey reference. The line, which I want to be careful to attribute correctly, because there are multiple transcriptions floating around, landed near the end of a long verse, and the response online was instantaneous. Within 90 minutes, the freestyle was the #1 trending topic on hip-hop Twitter. Within 12 hours, it had crossed over into general culture, which is to say it had been picked up outside the niche and re-amplified back into the niche. That kind of crossover velocity is the specific brand signal of an artist whose audience overlaps with the mainstream. It is not a 60-year-old losing relevance. It is a 60-year-old operating with the same pull he has always had. Which leads me into the second Layer 2 piece, which is Kung Fu Kenny's pop-out concert from June 19, 2024 in Inglewood. That show, Pop Out, Ken and Friends, was, by every metric that can be measured, a generational moment for West Coast hip-hop. And it is openly celebrated on the GNX Tour's official Instagram feed 2 years later as a historic unity moment for the coast. The Wave Crasher used the night not just to perform but to cure it. Dave Free and the PG Lang team made it a cultural event, not just a concert. The strategic intent was clear. He was giving the culture a moment to point at, a thing they could collectively say they were part of. Now here is the Layer 2 connection that almost nobody is making. Jay-Z attended. HOV was one of the surprise guests in the room. And the moment he stepped on stage, the entire conversation pivoted away from Kendrick as artist and onto HOV as veteran. That is not an accident. The Rock understood exactly what that room was, exactly what it could do, exactly how a single HOV appearance could collapse the entire media cycle onto the announcement of his next move. Which means when ACT says he will be at the LA SoFi show if Jay brings out Kendrick, the most obvious read is that he is acknowledging exactly what I am acknowledging. That the most watched move HOV can make right now is to step on his own stage and use a Kendrick appearance to remind everybody that the generational handshake is his to perform. And that Kendrick's own GNX tour schedule with SZA already makes that rollout structurally easy because Kendrick is in performing rotation anyway. The third piece of cultural evidence is the Akademiks Turn Up TV dance he does every single time Drake's name comes up on his stream. You have all seen it. The chair kick, the laugh, the Squidward grin, the whole Sidewalk News Network performative war face that his audience awards engagement on. That engagement architecture is no longer producing the result HOV's critics want it to produce. The Hovians have stopped reacting to it the way they used to. The general audience has started to read it as comedy, not as commentary. And now the man himself just told us he is going to a Jay-Z show. The Squidward is leaving the basement. And the fourth piece of cultural evidence is the loudest one, and it is the one I want to spend more time on. Ray Daniels on TFU said any new Jay-Z album would require industry cheats. That is a massive claim. It implies that HOV's era cannot survive on its own merits inside the current streaming structure. And it is a claim that is worth interrogating because even if you sit in the most anti-HOV corner, the more interesting question is who benefits from that claim being in the public conversation right now. Because the answer is, the artists who want people to believe the streaming era cannot be won by an OG. And the answer to that is, just look at the chart history of literally every classic rapper who has dropped a project in the last 3 years. They all win their first week on streams alone. They do not need cheats. They need a build-out. And The Rock is very good at build-outs. There is a deeper layer to this, and it is one almost everyone is missing. Because Ray Daniels being that explicit, that openly, was either a leak The Rock let happen or a moment they tried to fail to control. Either way, the response window they opened up in 12 hours tells you which side of that equation they want the public to be on, and the specific trade patterns of Roc Nation over the years, partnership routes with Live Nation for distribution. Athlete management adjacency on the same campus as the music imprint means that 12-hour response windows are not free. They are paid for in coordination hours, which is its own kind of evidence. Okay, so I want to do something different now. I want to take you into the deeper layer. Because layer 1 is what everybody has. Layer 2 is what the smartest commentators have. Layer 3 is what the industry is actually doing behind the curtain. And the deeper layer here is not about HOV's bars. It is about HOV's underlying business. So let me give you 3 angles that I think almost no one in this conversation is being honest about. The first angle is the publishing ownership angle. When Jay-Z retires a catalog item, the underlying publishing rights do not retire with the public-facing silence. They compound. Every classic track in his catalog accrues publishing value every year, regardless of whether a new drop is attached to it. So a man who has been quiet on the project front for several years is, in the background, sitting on a publishing portfolio that has been quietly appreciating the entire time. That is a structural financial fact, not an opinion. And it means that any return to active release is not a defensive move on his part. It is an offensive move. He does not need the release to stay wealthy. The release is a leverage event. And that completely changes how you read the Akademiks stream clip, because if Act thinks he is exposing HOV for using a Drake subliminal as a rollout chip, what he is actually exposing is that a man with nothing to lose financially is now playing offense with the most leveraged move in his arsenal. And nobody on that stream last night had a counter for that. The second angle is the label structure angle. Roc Nation is not a traditional label. It is a hybrid entertainment company. Live Nation integration, athlete management, publishing, fashion, streaming distribution windows, partnership routes with major DSPs. When a project finally drops, every piece of that infrastructure moves at once. That means a Jay-Z project is not a music release. It is a multi-vertical market event. That is a fundamentally different release model from what Aubrey or Kendrick or Act's favorite mid-tier rappers do. A Drake drop is a Spotify-armed single plus a music video plus an Instagram announce. A Kendrick drop is a thoughtful cultural moment plus an arena reveal, and you have all watched that play out, in real time, on the GNX tour cycle. A Jay-Z drop is a conglomerate moving inventory. And the third angle is the cultural refresh window. This is the one I want to spend the most time on, because it is the most under-discussed piece of the entire puzzle. The theory goes like this. There is a window in hip-hop, call it a cultural refresh cycle, about every 7 to 10 years, in which the elder statesman of the genre gets to redefine himself for the new generation. Jay-Z got his last refresh around the Magna Carta moment, which was 2013 adjacent. That is over a decade ago. The math says he is overdue. And the math also says that every refresh cycle that an OG successfully executes is a generational gift to the genre, because it is the moment where the new fans get pulled into the catalog through the new project. So when Act says HOV wants Drake to engage so he can use the smoke as a rollout, that is exactly the most read playbook in hip-hop cultural refresh history. The OG gets a controversy. The controversy pulls eyes to the new release. The new release pulls the new listener into the old catalog, and the cycle restarts. Combine all three, publishing, compounding, multi-vertical release infrastructure, and the cultural refresh math, and what you get is a man who is not running from the modern era. He is using it as infrastructure. And when you think about it structurally, there is a fourth angle that nobody else is even thinking about yet, which is the Torres album anchor model. The Yankee 3-night run is not a vanity retrospective. It is the front of a year-long activation that ends with the SoFi moment. HOV is essentially treating a stadium tour as the album rollout in advance, letting every performance become a release event in its own right, letting every surprise appearance generate the kind of cultural velocity that an actual music video generates for a streaming-era artist. It is brilliant precisely because it is invisible to anyone reading it through the streaming-era playbook. The streaming-era playbook says, drop, stream, chart. HOV's playbook says, appear, disrupt, redirect, and let the distribution follow the attention. That is a fundamentally different operating model, and it is why the Ray Daniels commentary is so off. He is grading a chess player on how he plays checkers. Now, let me give you the major truth bomb. Because what I want you to understand is that almost every Layer 1 commentary you have seen about this whole situation, the stream clip, the tour overlap, the Iceman countdown, the Ray Daniels clip, the SoFi second date, the Akademiks Pilates fit laugh when he said he will be at the show has been framed backward. The framing that you have been given is that Drake's stan is breaking